Welcome everybody into the divisional round episode of the Real Talk Ravens podcast, where we're going to be previewing this AFC divisional game for the Baltimore Ravens versus the Houston Texans at home on Saturday, January 20th at the Bank, 4:15 p.m. Eastern. Huh?
Is it 4:15 or 4:30?
I thought it was 4:15. Let's double check. 4:30. You are correct. All right.
Okay.
So, yeah, the 10-7 Texans are coming in. We did see them on week 1 where we beat them, I think 26-9 or 25-9, something like that.
25-9. Two very different teams now than they were back then.
Absolutely. So the one thing that I can say about that is the fact that coming into this year, the Ravens had a brand new offensive coordinator with basically none of the starters playing in the preseason. So they had no real live reps together. So they were still learning each other during that game. Plus, we had a bunch of injuries. And then on the Texans side of things, we had no real film to go off of besides preseason film because they had a completely new coaching staff.
And a completely brand new rookie quarterback.
Yeah, so those are some pretty big deals when looking back at that game. I know as a former college coach, anytime we played a team week 1 that had a new coaching staff, it was so hard. We were searching back through film from their previous stops, but you never really truly know until they get to that place and you see them on film with their new personnel, what they're going to actually do.
Oh, yeah. So, and it's just, I don't know. It's almost like you're preparing a different sport almost, because it's just like you don't really have too much to work off of. I'm actually like, I know a lot of people are worried about the Texans. I'm actually like really excited for this matchup. I don't know if we're going to win or lose. We might lose. We really might. But I think it's going to be
any given Sunday.
You know,
any given Sunday.
Yeah.
The Ravens are favored by 9 points right now. The over-under is 43.5. The weather is supposed to be 28 degrees. So it's going to be nice and cold for C.J. Stroud, who has been playing in a dome for the majority of this year. The only cold weather game I would like to point out that he's played in this year was versus the New York Jets, and they lost like 30-8 that he's played in personally.
He also did play at Ohio State. So
he did, but I actually looked back at his Ohio State days, and any cold weather game, he actually only had like a few games at the end of November, never really playing in December, because in college, you know, the season ends at the end of November, and then they get that huge month-long break before their bowl game in January, which is usually in a warm weather / dome. For him, it was. And so at the end of his last 2 years, he played Michigan, and it was the last weekend in November, and he was 0-2.
Really? Okay. Yeah, I mean, that checks. I'm interested to see how they adjust to that. You know, the Dolphins looked really out of their element last week, and everyone says like, oh, well, you know, they're not all from Florida. Yeah, but they practice in Florida all year. You know, they play in Florida all year, and then they went to like a negative 27 with the wind chill.
This doesn't really compare to that, but 28 degrees for a dome team, I think, you know.
Well, let me just put it this way. When I go outside in the morning to get in my car and go to work, it's normally like 30 degrees, and I'm groaning and moaning like, oh, this is so cold. You know, and I'm in North Carolina, which is like a pretty temperate state, but we're normally warmer than we're not. So same kind of thing. You know, you live somewhere for a while, you get acclimated.
Yeah, for sure. So threads of the week, we are going to be wearing purple jerseys with black pants. I like that look. I love that look.
I love that look too.
Yeah. Getting into some transactions that we did make this week. So let's see. This week we designated Mark Andrews to return from injured reserve.
Which also, by the way, he said that if he feels he's good to go, he's going to play.
Right. We'll get into that on the injury report as far as that goes. We did waive originally Laquan Treadwell, and we placed Demarion, a.k.a. Pepe Williams, on IR. But then we released Also released DB Jeremy Lucien and signed DB Christian Matthew to the practice squad. We then, after that, released wide receiver Tariq Black from the practice squad and then got Laquan Treadwell back onto the practice squad. And then we also, in turn, waived Melvin Gordon.
Yeah.
And the reason we did that is so we could go ahead and make some room for Dalvin Cook. So we made some room, signed him from the practice squad up to the active roster. And also we had to make room for the potential return of Mark Andrews and Devin Duvernay.
Now, there is some thought that we might still re-sign Gordon at some point if we need to. I feel bad for him because he had that fumble in the Steelers game, and I feel like it kind of sealed his fate. Also, the fact that we added Dalvin Cook, but we seem to be pretty big on bringing guys back that we like in the locker room, and I don't think one fumble is going to define his career in Baltimore. I think if we find room for him, we'll bring him back.
Yeah, I believe so too. But with that, our referee of the game is Mr. John Hussey himself.
Oh no, who is John Hussey? Oh no,
John Hussey. All right, so I sent this in our text thread. Supposedly, according to Reddit, Hussey has been favoring the home team this season. Football Reference has him at 81% of his flags are in favor of the home team. Yeah. That's pretty big. That's a pretty staggering stat.
That's kind of surprising that they would have someone that leaning that far one way or another reffing a game at this point of the year. But I guess
he's been here. He's been around for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen him. I've seen his face for years. So, that could be a good thing or a bad thing. He could try and overcompensate for the away team all of a sudden.
If he's really looking into that, we'll see. Hopefully not. But
you never know.
Either way, that is the most staggering referee stat I've seen all season. So I don't know. That's what it said on Reddit. We'll see how true it is. Getting into the injury report, this is what we're looking at. Pretty significant injury reports for both teams. Houston Texans only have one player that is out, and that is defensive end Jerry Hughes. He has already been labeled as out, at least, with an ankle injury. They have two players that are questionable, with tackle George Fant, who came up on the injury report just today as not practicing with an illness. So we'll see how he feels, I guess. I don't know if he has the flu and it's that bad or if he just has a common cold. Andrew Beck, the fullback with a back injury, is also listed as questionable. Only had one limited practice. Other than that, he did not practice this week. So that was the main guys on their injury report. Sheldon Rankins only practiced today in a limited fashion, but they did not list him as questionable. So he's someone to keep an eye on during the game to see if he lasts or how many snaps he plays.
I think it's more of a just load management kind of thing there,
Yeah. And then the other guy that is not on their injury report but did get hurt during the game last week against the why am I blanking on this? Who did they play last week?
Browns.
The Browns. Was Laramie Tunsil, their starting tackle, who's probably their best offensive player besides CJ Stroud.
No way he doesn't play.
No, he's not even on the injury report, so he'll be playing. But my question is, how healthy is he, and how much will it affect his game on the field? Who knows?
I think he's pretty healthy because
he did take some rest days this week, so
yeah.
We'll see. And then I think that's it for the only other guys. Will Anderson didn't practice one day; every other day he was limited, so he could be a question.
A key injury.
He is.
A key injury last week. Noah Brown went out, and now he's on IR.
Correct.
Yeah. So that's kind of big for them, especially since they're already a little light on the wide receiver, and which is good because if you look at our side of the injury report, there is a very big out for us.
Yes. And so if you look at that, our big out is corner Marlon Humphrey with his calf. Did not practice at all this week. Hasn't played since he got hurt versus it was week 17, I think.
Yeah, wasn't it Miami?
Yeah, Miami, and it was like on the first or second drive. So
early in the game, it makes you wonder, like, really what happened.
Yeah, and they're kind of keeping it close to the vest on the severity of it, because according to John Harbaugh, he said nobody had any serious injuries from what he knew. So we'll see about
Well,
that. See if he comes back potentially in a AFC championship game or not. And the other guy that's out is Tylan Wallace with a knee injury. But the good news on that is Devin Duvernay had full practice this week, and he is designated to return. He is listed as questionable right now, but it's all signs pointing as if he's playing and good to go.
Especially with no Tylan Wallace,
Yeah. And, even with Tylan Wallace, I think you got to rely on your veteran, Devin Duvernay. He's been an all-pro kick returner, punt returner. So very good to see him. And like we said, the only guys that are on IR, Pepe Williams and Daryl Worley. It looks like questionable wise, Mark Andrews is the big question mark. He did practice full both today and Wednesday. So like you said earlier, he said if he's feels like he's good to go, he'll go. If he feels like he's lingering at all, he'll probably sit it back and let Isaiah Likely take the number one. And
Mark Andrews is playing. I feel like he's probably going to play. I feel like if he's,
I think if he plays, I don't think he's like going to get a crazy number of snaps.
Agreed.
I think he could be like a red zone. Get him in the red zone.
Get him in the red zone. Get him in a crucial moment, but really, really just manage that play time, because if he's back and he's good, we really want him down the stretch. If we continue to win games, I think also a big one, especially with, I know that he's a safety, but with Marlon Humphrey being out, having Ardarius Washington in, I just, or at least questionable to play, and he practiced in full twice this week. I guess.
Yeah, if I had to guess,
Wednesday.
As long as the numbers come out right for us on the roster, I would see him as active. The only reason I wouldn't is if there's not enough room for him on the roster. But yeah, Zay Flowers is good to see back full both Wednesday and Thursday. He did not practice at all during the bye week.
No.
And I think Odafe Owe is pretty huge too. I don't think he practiced during the bye week either.
I don't think he did either. And then you see Clowney, he had like an illness or something, but he's good to go.
Yeah, he came back today and practiced.
Delshon Phillips, he has not practiced all week, but he is still questionable. So
it is a shoulder injury, so they may just shoot him up and try to see how he feels. But that could be more so a deal on the special teams, because I don't think, we're not counting on him defensively really at this point. But special teams wise, someone may have to fill a spot there for him.
Right.
Maybe Trenton Simpson.
Trenton Simpson, let me tell you, man, he balled out. He balled out against the Steelers.
He sure did.
He kind of makes you feel like if we don't have Patrick Queen next year, we'll be okay.
And that's probably going to be the case.
But it's good that our depth pieces are A, getting healthy, and B, playing very well. So
exactly.
That's really what you want at this point. I don't think we've gone into the divisional round ever this healthy. Maybe besides the year we won the Super Bowl. And even then, Ray Lewis was nursing that, what was it, a shoulder or a forearm or something?
Bicep,
that's right.
He tore his bicep and came back for the playoffs.
That's right.
So, hey, look at the parallels there with what's his face that's coming back for the playoffs. Yeah, Mark Andrews.
Yeah. One can only hope.
Yeah, so we'll see about that. Anyways, you want to go ahead and get into some offensive keys of the game?
Yeah, certainly.
All right. Let's go ahead and do this then. All right, so offensively, again, we didn't have a lot of film, and we also didn't have a lot of camaraderie that week one game, so I expect us to have a completely different look offensively than we did in week one. I think we're not going to be rolling on all cylinders, I don't think, because no matter what you say, 3 weeks really off is going to, account for some type of rust. I know people are trying to say, oh, we got a different culture, this and that, but the timing is still a thing. Well, we had a lot of guys that did not practice at all during the bye week.
I do want to also mention, in all 4 of Lamar Jackson's playoff games, he scored a combined, I believe, 3 points in the first quarter. So we are prone to slow starts in the playoffs offensively. But what I think that gives me a little bit of hope on that end is that we've had a few slow starts this year too, and still ended up picking teams out of the water, you know? So I think that we might have a slow start. I think personally the way to win this game is just really keep the ball out of CJ Stroud's hands. And I know that's always the deal, but especially now, if we can just run it down their throats and capitalize on the play action game, the screen game, stuff like that, really kill time of possession, that's our best bet.
Yeah. So one thing I will say, and this was true in the beginning of the year, is the Texans have a very, very strong secondary. They have some really good players at defensive back with Petrie and Stingley.
Yeah.
Both those guys are, catching a lot of interceptions. They're playing really well. For me, the key to the game is to run the ball. I think that's their weakness. I think that's where we can control the game. I don't think they're ranked very highly when it comes to their run defense. I think, and plus we're ranked as, I think, the number one rushing offense. So if we can establish that run game, it'll be interesting to see how we use Dalvin Cook and his capacity. But I expect, honestly, the best running back this game is to be Justice Hill. I think he's going to kind of burst onto the scene. He started to against Miami. And then, obviously we played Pittsburgh and didn't want to play him too much. But I think you can see him have a big game. In week one, remember, before J.K. Dobbins got hurt, he was going off.
Yeah, and J.K. Dobbins, although he's better, is a very similar running back to Justice Hill, in my opinion. And I also think that with the Texans, it'll be good for us to establish the run game because it'll be good for our offensive line to really face that defensive line head on and just kind of establish their dominance early because that defensive line can cause some problems.
Absolutely. Will Anderson, in particularly the rookie, has balled out this year. I'm not sure who's up for Defensive Rookie of the Year, but I would assume he's in the conversation.
I think he's been pretty. I think they've been talking. This will be the second straight year that the same team has Offensive and Defensive Rookie of the Year. Because last year it was the Jets. This year I think it's the Texans. So
yeah, I mean, my biggest concern is him offensively when we're in passing situations. I think we have to give our tackles help. I'm hoping that, maybe we do our rotation that we were doing. Maybe.
Do the Texans like to move him around? Or is he
no, they're a standard 4 down, so they don't really move him around. He's strictly hand in the dirt. He's not really going to drop back like TJ Watt kind of does randomly. But
does he normally play on one side, or do they like move him left to right?
That's a good question. I haven't really watched the film too much to see, but if I had to guess, they probably try to. I can't really comment on that, but that's something to maybe check and see during the game if we see him moving around. That could be part of that defensive game plan.
I think that would have that might have an impact on our offense too if we're having to move those tight ends or have an extra tackle or something. A heavy set just for a pass that might expose us a little bit. So we gotta not necessarily expose us, but kind of be a tell of what we're gonna do. So we just obviously, I'm sure we've been anticipating that all week, and they've done the film research and all that. But I'm interested to see who matches up against him and kind of what that looks like.
Yeah, one thing, just looking back at my notes from the week 1 game, was we did match up tight ends on Will Anderson quite a few times, and whenever we did that, Will Anderson made our tight ends look silly. So I would hope we don't try to match up our tight ends one-on-one and blocking with him, because that's not going to work.
Well, also, if you remember, the last time we played Houston, we didn't have Mark Andrews starting in that game either.
True.
So
we had Likely, but he was still trying to figure things out blocking wise, because he's more of that receiving tight end, and
of course
we can't. I don't care. Like, even Mark Andrews, I don't consider him a true blocking tight end by any means. So I think the only guy that I could potentially trust one-on-one with him, fullback / tight end wise, is Ricard, but I think we have to match him up with a tackle and potentially double teaming him with a Ricard or a tight end as well.
Now, we did a really good job against Aiden Hutchinson, who I feel is probably one of the more similar comparisons to Will Anderson that we've played this year. But if you remember correctly, there were a lot of times where he was getting through, but Lamar was just poised, stayed in the pocket, and like kind of, just stepped into the throw and didn't really worry about it. So
You know
that's
who he reminds me more of is Mafe from Seattle.
yeah,
Just because he's not the same size as Hutchinson. He's a smaller in stature guy, and that's why some guys in the draft kind of knocked him for his size and didn't think he would translate to the NFL because of that. But yeah, there definitely were. Like they were thinking, there's a chance he dropped lower, maybe like around the 10th pick rather than where he went.
right.
So yeah, obviously they were wrong. I think he's just really twitchy, and that does not bode well for our tackles. We're bigger. We are big tackles that want to deal with, the freaks like Myles Garrett and the freaks like Aiden Hutchinson. Those are what our guys are meant for. They're not meant for these shorter in stature, kind of like James Harrison type defensive ends. So
Excited
that's a
to see
huge matchup for us that I definitely think we have to game plan around.
Now, another thing, last time we played the Texans, obviously they have a pretty good secondary, but we also weren't really like passing the ball the way we have been since.
No, like we said, I mean,
they really haven't gotten a chance to defend a healthy OBJ or a healthy Zay Flowers or even like a healthy, confident Isaiah Likely. So,
and like we said, though, there was no camaraderie in week 1. We didn't play together. That was the very first time. It was almost like a preseason game in that way.
Almost kind of. I mean, I know back then I had picked us to win, I'm pretty sure. But with week 1, like anyone can lose to anyone. So the fact that we were able to win with that little bit of camaraderie that we had and all that kind of laid the blueprint of what this season was going to be. I think we've been really good with adversity, but I also think that's something the Texans have been really good at. So
another thing that they do like to do with Will Anderson is they like to twist him on third downs, so that you have him matched up on a guard. And then it's something that we like to do with our linebackers where we twist them on blitzes, but they're doing it with their defensive tackle and their defensive end. It's normally called like a TEX stunt. Basically, they're just switching responsibilities and trying to confuse the offensive line. And that was something that confused our O-line. Specifically, I remember Kevin Zeitler got beat on one. And so obviously that's a good learning experience because that's part of their game plan. So,
yeah.
One thing that I can see us doing a lot of is doing RPOs. And I hope that we're careful with that because one thing I've seen consistently with Lamar is that if it's an RPO, he kind of pre-decides based on the pre-snap whether he's going to throw it or run it or hand it off. And a lot of the times it's kind of like a guessing game for him. It's like, I don't know. He makes a lot of misreads on RPOs is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Just because, there's a lot of times where he throws it when he should be handing it off. There's a lot of times where he should be handing it off when he should, handing it off when he should throw it. And it's just like he never really truly sees that. I don't know if that's something he's gotten more practice with over this bye week because I think the run game's got to be huge, and then we can RPO them off of that when they try to stick an extra hat in the box.
Yeah.
And put that guy into a conflict. So,
and I also think that, Lamar himself using his legs will probably play a pretty big part in this game as well. I just think
he has to. Yeah, at this point of the season, there's no saving your legs. There's no, let's not get him hurt. This is the AFC divisional round. This is the best weekend of football in the NFL season. I don't care what you say.
Yeah, I mean, it's
you have there's no silly dilly teams like the Philadelphia Eagles. There's no teams like the freaking Pittsburgh Steelers just hanging around with a freaking lifeline. None of that. All these teams, they believe that they are going to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they truly, truly do. And man, this week has a lot of really good I feel like our game is the best game, but like not by far. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
I'm biased. So,
well, anything else offensively?
No, I think that's it.
All right, defensively, CJ Stroud has been on fire lately. Yeah, absolute on a tear.
I mean, he was injured for 2 weeks, came back and made like a complete difference.
Absolutely,
And
the offensive rookie of the year, even with missing those 3 games or whatever it was.
like, 1 second, I'll
And
write that down
doing
here.
that with the talent that he has.
Well, I wasn't trying to get you. Sorry about that, Tyler.
No problem.
It's all good. I apparently
Yeah, so I was saying, and where was I? Oh, and
CJ.
CJ Stroud is the offensive rookie of the year. And he's doing that with basically no real targets. I mean, he made Nico Collins a superstar this year, and he was a no-name before this year.
And he did have Tank Dell for half the year too. Don't forget about that. Who
Okay, he had a third-round receiver.
was unproven, so it's
Yeah,
like
another guy that, I mean, obviously he was really fast and small, kind of like a Hollywood Brown a little bit.
he is the kind of wide receiver, quarterback that reminds me of like Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady, who kind of just elevates everyone around him.
Yeah, I think the biggest,
Yeah,
I was going to say that Joe Burrow is the guy that comes to mind for me because of his pocket awareness. I feel like he's constantly just setting the pass rushers up, and then he's so comfortable and confident and just stepping up in the pocket, and he knows exactly where he's going. This offense is, how Kurt Warner always gets on our Ravens about their spacing and how it's so, off. Yeah. The Texans, no, their spacing is impeccable. They have guys in the right spots, and CJ Stroud knows exactly where to go with the ball, depending on the.
Also, the thing about CJ Stroud, like, he fears no man. He goes on TV and talks about his relationship with God and how he feels he's just gonna be taken care. Like, this man is not afraid of the Ravens.
He's completely confident, and I don't know if it's because for him it's like, I'm a rookie, I got nothing to lose, or he's just that kind of guy. I don't know.
Look, I don't normally say this, but I feel like this would be the one time where if we manage to lose, I would be rooting for the team that beat us. Because he's that kind of a player, he's electric and he's so smart. He's got such a good awareness in the pocket, like you were saying. He's not.
I just don't think the team around him is suited to win a Super Bowl.
Not this year. Give it 2 or 3 seasons. As long as they're smart and they build around him now, they'll be okay.
They've got, from last year's draft, they have, like we just said, the offensive rookie of the year and the defensive rookie of the year. Hopefully they don't have a following year like the Jets did, like this year.
Injury played so much into that. And, I know that the O-line on the Jets is not great, but injury played so much into that as well. And I just hope that injury does not ruin this Texans team in the future. I feel like this might be a pretty common playoff matchup going forward.
I can see it. To me, just based off what I've seen from this year, I think you can consider CJ Stroud in the next year or two probably a top 5, maybe even top 3 quarterback in the NFL.
Here's the thing. It's a pity that the playoffs don't count towards the MVP, because if CJ Stroud took the Texans to the Super Bowl or the AFC Championship game, I think there would be no doubt in my mind that he's the MVP as a rookie. Just the way he carries that team on his shoulders, And obviously I don't want that. I want to win.
It's kind of crazy they don't, because if you think about it, there's never an MVP that isn't in the playoffs.
Right. Has that ever happened? I mean, I think it's happened.
Not that I've seen.
But that's a different sport entirely, so.
Yeah. Getting back to defense, I just think, like I said, he does such a good job setting the pass rushers up and stepping up into the pocket. We have to provide pressure from the interior of the pocket. We can't just let him set our outside guys up. We need to manufacture some twists like they do, maybe even some linebacker blitzes up the middle. I don't think he's really concerned when we have somebody blitzing off the edge. Even if it is Kyle Hamilton, he's going to be able to step up and get away from guys because of how that's just what he does.
I This is the aspect of the game that really excites me, really makes me feel like the Ravens should win. Is because I feel that we can make the Texans very one-dimensional. They, as great as they are in the air, as great as CJ Stroud's been, they really, Devin Singletary's been really good these last few weeks, but they're still not like the best running team. So
yeah, they are. To me, they're pretty much one-dimensional. They're not scaring anybody with their run game.
And they have the potential to, like, if everything's clicking on all cylinders. But like most times they play, if you can shut down the run game early, force them to throw, that's how you beat them. And sometimes they'll still beat you, but that's not going to last forever. You can't just win a Super Bowl only passing or only throwing. We know we tried to, only passing or only running.
I think that this game is going to come down to the coaching.
Mhm.
I think Mike McDonald's going to draw up a masterful defensive game plan. I think he's going to create some blitzes. The one thing that the Ravens do that not many other teams do is they are different week to week with just the way they are schemed up defensively specifically. Whereas the Texans, their defense is kind of, all right, we're going to line up in our base defense. We may have one or two one-offs of that defense based off the formation you line up in. And then once you figure that out, that's what we do. The Ravens are going to keep you guessing. Mike McDonald's going to keep you guessing the entire game.
I will say, and obviously the Browns are a different team than us for a reason. They were also kind of one-dimensional. They couldn't really get the run game going. But after they scored that second touchdown, they completely shut the Cleveland Browns down. And they had like pretty much back-to-back pick sixes, right? Where they were both pick sixes? Yeah,
back-to-back.
And so I know Joe Flacco is a little more prone to make mistakes and throw interceptions, but also, man, like, let's be real right here. Lamar Jackson in the playoffs needs to prove that he has that poise. And I have seen him panic before. I don't anticipate that happening this week. I think he's just got a whole different mindset.
They keep saying the words locked in.
Yeah.
They keep saying that.
You should have heard him when they asked him if they thought we were going to score more than 20 points this week for the first time in his playoff career. And he was like, of course. Yeah, of course we are. So
I just hope that he doesn't, think too deeply about this whole, I have my playoff stats are so bad. I hope he doesn't think about that too deeply and put too much pressure on himself. I just want him to go out there and play free, just like he does in the regular season, just like he did toward this end of the season.
Look at his post-game interview after thumping the Dolphins and then thumping the 49ers the week before. Hey, did you know that you lead the MVP voting and you guys clinched the number 1 seed and all that? Okay.
Yep.
That's not what I'm here for.
Yep.
So
absolutely,
you're not getting anything from this man until his season is over. And if he has it his way, his season won't be over for a few more weeks. So.
And I think what's going to happen, what you're going to see is he's going to take over the game with his legs.
And I
know we're on defense, but we're getting back to offense. But anyways, getting back to defense, I think we pretty much covered everything. It's really the matter is put pressure on Stroud. He is not good under pressure. No quarterback really is.
And we have the advantage of having some of the most exotic blitz schemes, which is even after you got to remember, Mike McDonald is a disciple of Wink Martindale.
And the Texans' offensive line is not that great. They have Laramie Tunsil, and that's it.
Yeah. Now, I will say, sometimes when you're clicking. Look at the Browns before last week. Their O-line was nothing, and they were dominating teams. So I'm not going to overlook that. But the fact that Tunsil got banged up last game and, had to rest a couple days, that's concerning.
I'm going to go back to the fact that, all right, the Cleveland Browns, I wish I would have known this before, but Myles Garrett was not at full strength.
Was he not?
No, he was nursing that shoulder and rib injury or whatever it was at the end of the season here, and he was not at full strength, and it was noticeable. I think what you're going to see from us defensively is going to be similar to what you saw from the Jets when they played the Texans. And we're just going to be able to provide – we're going to produce pressure in with our interior D linemen, Michael Pierce, Matabike. These guys are all pros, and they're going against, average O linemen. I don't think they're going to have any issue.
Not to mention, last thing about the defense, in the pass game when we're playing the pass, now we have Kyle Hamilton back. So we're going to have Kyle Hamilton wreaking havoc back there with both of our middle linebackers, assuming they're healthy.
So the big question mark on our defense right now is corner because of Marlon Humphrey being out. We have Brandon Stevens. We are probably going to start Darby as the other corner, potentially Rocky Sin going to rotate in at some point. And then you also have, Millette playing that nickel position. So the real question mark is, how do they manufacture Nico Collins getting the ball? Because he's really their only guy, him and Dalton Schultz. We have struggled versus tight ends this year with our linebackers, so they might try to do that.
I don't want to do what the Cowboys did, where they completely just disregarded Romeo Doubs, and all of a sudden there's this random wide receiver we've never heard of putting 300 yards up against us. But also, we're not the Cowboys. We're not the Cowboys. We're ready for this game.
And the other thing that I'll say about the Browns last week is they were just extremely aggressive, and they had no just wherewithal to adjust within the game. When they were getting guys running past them wide open, when they were in press coverage, they stayed in it. They didn't adjust. They didn't try to drop back and say, oh, we'll play a little bit off now because they're taking deep shots on us. No, they continue to do what they were doing. I don't know what Jim Schwartz was thinking, but I know for a fact Mike McDonald isn't going to do that.
No, he's not. And if we're healthy and we have all our pieces there throughout the whole game, we should fare pretty well.
Yeah, Mike McDonald is a guy. He's going to make you earn everything you gain offensively. And yes, they are going to make plays. CJ Stroud is a very, very good quarterback. But the matter of the fact is we're going to get that 1 or 2 turnovers. That's going to be the difference in the game.
Anything else defensively?
Nope. Let's go ahead and get into some predictions.
Okay. I'll let you go first.
All right. Offensively, I'm going to say Lamar Jackson rushes for 100 yards.
You stole my.
Defensively, I'm going to say that Patrick Queen gets 2 sacks.
Okay. What's your score?
Score? Good question. I'm going to say 30. Let's say 34 to 28. 34-28. Baltimore.
All right, so
I think it's going to be, how the week 1 game was probably closer than the score suggested. I think this one's going to be the opposite. I think it's going to be we're going to get a bigger lead, and then they're going to start coming back at the end.
Okay. So I think this is going to be the game that defines what kind of team we are. I think it's going to be a very challenging game, actually, early for us. I think, though, my bold predictions, offensively, I think that Lamar is going to find 3 different guys in the air for a touchdown. I don't know if they're all going to be receivers or tight ends or whatever, but I think he's going to find at least 3 different guys in the air for a touchdown. Defensively, I think Geno Stone's going to have another pick, and it's going to come in a big moment. I think this game's going to go a little differently than you do. I actually think we might get down kind of big, 2 scores early in the game. But I think we'll end up winning it 27-17. We'll be down 17-3 at the end of the first half, and then shut them out. Kind of one of those games, where we just wake up in the second half. Because I think the Texans are going to come out with a lot of fire. I really do.
I hope we do. I hope we start off strong.
Well, like you said, we also haven't played in 3 weeks.
We have also, all year long, been a first half team. So that would be kind of strange for us.
Actually, if you remember correctly, in the first few weeks when we were figuring things out, we were a second half team. We would kind of be okay in the first half and then really put our stuff together in the second half when we were winning. Of course, the Colts game was a little different. I guess it was really only in our wins where we became a second half team. Because at that Texans game, it was kind of close early. We went ahead. And then, trying to think what was week 2, the Bengals game, we really didn't come to life until the second half. And I know that game was a little closer, but we really came to life in the second half. I think we start slow just because we haven't played in 3 weeks. But the difference between this Ravens team and I think any other Ravens team I've seen since we won the Super Bowl, the coaching and the camaraderie in this locker room is phenomenal. And we're going to adjust to whatever's thrown at us. And we will be a second half team this week if we have to be. Hopefully, you're right. We get up like 35-3, and then they just kind of slowly chip away in the fourth quarter, and we're not really playing anyone at that point. But I don't foresee that. So,
all right. Well, that leads us into our picks for the week. We're going to take it back to last week, and pretty much it was a dead even tie.
Yeah.
Yeah, we both went 3-3, although we had different picks.
Let's see.
So you're still 3 games up. But as we said last week, this week, each of these games count as 2 points.
2 points.
So it could be either a slaughter by you and just, you take it away, or I could inch my way back.
I'll tell you what, if I run the board with you, I'll be nice and I'll just make it count as 1 point so that it's still close.
No, there's no niceness in this. This is purely competition.
We're treating it like the teams treat the playoffs? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. So you are 69-48 for the season. I'm 66-51. And we've got 3 weeks to go potentially.
All right.
We should pick the I don't know how they're going to do it, but maybe we can do some picks for the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, they have the flag football game. They have a couple different other games and
competitions or something.
Yeah, that would be kind of like a fun little Pro Bowl week episode thing.
Yeah,
you could do that.
All right,
I'm totally.
So, anyways, getting into the real deal here. All right, first up, we're going to look at the NFC side first this week.
Okay.
The number 1 seed, San Francisco 49ers versus the Green Bay Packers. And just to give you a quick synopsis on their injury report, Jair Alexander is questionable and has not practiced today or Wednesday. A.J. Dillon is questionable. Linebacker Isaiah McDuffie is questionable. And their punter got sick and is questionable. I think you can punt with a cold. Anyways, going into the Niners, they are fully healthy. Actually, I take that back. Clelin Ferrell. Clelin Ferrell is out.
And Kinlaw is questionable.
Greenlaw.
I said Kinlaw.
Greenlaw, their linebacker, is questionable with an Achilles. But Clelin Ferrell is out. And as we know from the last couple of weeks, they had Jason Verrett go down with a season-ending injury as a corner.
Yeah.
So for them, for sure, they're on top when it comes to the injury report. But it doesn't look like anything major besides Jair Alexander for the Packers.
So I'm a little torn on this one because the Packers played really well last week, but part of me just thinks that that's just because they were playing Dallas. And I know that's like the general feeling around the country is like, oh, they played Dallas, but the 49ers are still way better than the Packers. I'm going to pick the upset here because I think Jordan Love is playing with ice in his veins. I can't even explain how similar he looked to Aaron Rodgers last week, just stepping into some of those throws, the arm angles, everything, man. And of course, everything's going to come to an end. And, San Fran is the number 1 seed for a reason. But what we saw when we played San Fran is that if you hit them in the mouth, then you've got a shot. And no one's hit them in the mouth this year, really, besides us and Cleveland, Cincinnati. Cincy too.
The AFC North.
The AFC North. I think that the Packers, it'll be tough because they're playing across country, but it's not as bad as if they're like an East Coast team.
They're in the Central Time Zone, I believe, right?
Yeah, so it's only a 2-hour difference versus a 3-hour difference. They'll be playing in warmer weather than they're used to. That'll be nice. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I feel like that Matt LaFleur is tired of losing to the 49ers. He's lost to the 49ers in the playoffs multiple times. I think that this is the time he gets one on his old coach.
Okay, I respect that. 49ers are just like us. They are 9-point favorites in this game. I do believe they are the by far best team in the NFC. Um, and just because Jordan Love is playing well at this, last few weeks, I always like to say, let's look at the whole season as a whole. And, eventually he will regress to the mean. So versus this San Francisco defense, I just have a hard time believing he's going to continue that success. I do think, I think the Niners cover this game. Actually, I think
You really do?
they win by 2 possessions. I think they win by at least 10. So I'm going to go with the Niners.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, already got a difference. Next
Yeah,
game up.
I could see either one happening. You know what I mean? They are the 1 seed for a
It's
reason. So
the divisional round, man. Anything can happen.
yeah, look at how good we were when the Titans came and stomped our butts 4 years ago. Could happen.
Yep.
So
Yep, for sure. Other NFC matchup we've got here is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Detroit Lions.
did you want to start with this one, or did you want me to?
I'd like you to start.
Detroit could potentially, if the Packers win and they win, be hosting the NFC Championship game. There's a lot at stake for both teams. People forget the Buccaneers have been here a lot recently. They actually have more playoff wins recently than the Bills do, I think, if I'm remembering that stat correctly. They've been here before, but the Lions are they're drinking the magic potion or something, because they've ever since, and even including that game against the Cowboys, really ever since that Broncos game, they've looked like a different team than they were at one point this season. They were losing all the momentum and they kind of just hit that shift. And let's not forget that the Lions and the Buccaneers already played this season.
They did. And the Lions beat them pretty handily, I believe.
They did. And it was in Tampa when they were doing like the Orange Crush game or whatever. So big game.
I remember.
But
I think it was the game before we played Detroit. That's why I watched it.
Yeah, but Baker Mayfield plays his best when people doubt him, and people are doubting him because he won the worst division in the NFL and he played the Eagles. Of course, you're going to beat the Eagles. The Eagles suck, but he's still got Godwin. He's still got Evans. He's still got a really pretty decent defense, and a head coach that everyone respects. And the Lions are a little finicky to me. I think that things really have to go their way. I feel like they got very lucky winning against the Rams, because I actually feel the Rams were probably the better team.
They outperformed them. They just couldn't score in the red zone.
Right. And so I think that might be the downfall of the Buccaneers if they're to lose, is not being able to punch it in. But I think they'll be able to score, and I think the Buccaneers are going to upset them. And that's going to be like the upset of the weekend. If I have my way, we're seeing Green Bay at Tampa for the NFC Championship game. So
this one to me is the hardest game to pick of the entire divisional round, just because, I feel like Detroit is almost just relieved that they won their first playoff game in 32 years. And the Buccaneers, you got Baker Mayfield playing like his hair's on fire. He's got a little bit of an edge to him. I think, though, with Tampa playing on a Monday night and having a shorter rest period, I believe that favors the Lions. Looking at the injury report here, Bucs have both Shaq Barrett at linebacker and Chase Edmonds at running back as questionable. And then really the Lions just have Khalif Raymond at receiver, who's like a fifth string receiver.
Yeah, the Lions did get to an extra day of rest. That's true.
Yeah. And then you also have to count the day of travel as another day. So to me, it's almost like the Lions are getting a day and a half advantage on the Buccaneers. So for that reason, I'm going to go with Detroit at home. I think their crowd is going to go absolutely crazy, and they're going to be in the NFC Championship.
I hope Detroit wins, but I don't know if they will.
All right. So far, NFC, me and you, completely different.
Yeah, this is where either I crush you or you catch up next week.
Yeah.
So.
And so we already picked the Ravens-Texans game, both of us, obviously, on the Ravens. So then the only other matchup we got here is the Chiefs game.
I'll let you go.
Chiefs at Buffalo. This is the first playoff game Patrick Mahomes has ever played on the road. With that also being said, like we just mentioned, the Bills are on a shorter week or less preparation than the Chiefs because they played on Monday. But there's just something different the way both of these teams are playing lately.
Yeah. It seems like they're both getting very lucky, but at the same time, like they're not making mistakes. Like they're lucky in the sense of like I feel like if the Chiefs had played Miami in Miami, maybe the Dolphins would have won, but it wasn't played in Miami. I feel like if they had played the Steelers game in the snow, the Steelers might have won that game. But they haven't. I have a reservation with the Bills because they've been definitely making a lot more mistakes than the Chiefs have been. But they're both kind of getting their crap together at the right time, you know?
Yeah, the one thing I'll say though is when it comes to health, really you got Chiefs only had nose tackle Derek Nottie as questionable. The Bills, you got corner Christian Benford, linebacker Terrell Bernard is out. Gabe Davis has not practiced at all this week.
Out, or is he just questionable?
Bernard, I believe, is out.
Oh, Benford, the corner.
Oh, Christian Benford's questionable.
Okay.
Other linebacker Dotson has only done limited practice this week. Also, you've got Taylor Rapp still has not practiced. He did not play last week.
You know who
then
game this week?
So they're just all banged up. The one guy that they may get back though is their corner. Where's he at? From the one they traded for. He's not even on the injury report this week, which means he's back. Rasul Douglas.
Rasul Douglas, yeah. I'm very excited to see how Khalil Shakir plays this week because he can be a game changer. He's kind of what Gabe Davis isn't, you know?
Yeah, I think this
Which
game,
is consistent.
I'm going back to the whole big picture here. The Chiefs have only been playing good the last week or two, 2 weeks, right? The Bills have been on fire the last quarter of the season pretty much.
Yeah.
Right? They've already beaten the Chiefs. They beat the Dolphins to get in.
Think about it like this, though. Think about it like this. We are one bad or controversial call away from this game being played in Kansas City right now. So that win over the Chiefs, it was
in Kansas City the first game, right?
Yes, it was. But what I'm saying is we're one controversial call away from this game also being in Kansas City. So
I hear you. I think Bills Mafia is going to go absolutely insane. I think that the cold game that the Chiefs just played, apparently there were multiple players that had hypothermia / frostbite symptoms.
Yeah, I heard that there were almost 70.
I think that game took a lot out of the Chiefs. I also think that the Bills versus the Steelers really hurt them at the linebacker position, losing Bernard.
Yeah.
So I could see a huge game by Travis Kelce, but I think Josh Allen's going to have an even bigger one. So I'm going to go with the Bills.
Okay. I like everything you're saying. You got to beat the champs to be the champs, right? That's kind of the saying. I do, however, think that the Chiefs will be able to capitalize on the lack of linebackers, the absence of the linebackers with their run game. Isaiah Pacheco, he's healthy, right?
Yeah, one thing I'll say about that, though, is that the Bills' defensive line is looking pretty strong right now.
Yes, they are, without a doubt. I don't know, though, man. The fact that despite everything, the Chiefs are still here kind of makes me feel like the Chiefs are going to find a way to win this game. And I know that no Bills fan wants to hear that because they're so tired of the dang Chiefs. I get it. I understand.
Well, yeah.
I think the Chiefs are going to win because I think Rashee Rice is kind of having a renaissance, and I think that they're going to outcoach the Bills. I think that Josh Allen makes too many crucial mistakes in big moments. And, kind of the same thing that people say about Lamar. So I don't want to harp on him too much. He did win last week. I'll have to see it to believe it. You know what I mean? So I think I'm going to pick the Chiefs.
All right, so then it's set. This is what we got. We only agree on one pick, and that's the Ravens. Besides that,
that's the one that we're right on.
Hopefully that's the only one we're right on.
Right.
But, it would be just so nice if we could win on Saturday and sit back and relax Sunday and watch the Chiefs and Bills.
I just feel like in order to win the Super Bowl, the Ravens are going to have to go through Patrick Mahomes.
Hey, take your pick. Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen, two of the best.
Right. I mean, either way is going to be tough. I'd rather play the Bills because they're a little more beat up. But
the one thing I'll say about the Bills is they seem to have Lamar's number.
They've played him twice, 3 times. And
they've beaten them, I think, every time. Oh, no, we beat them once.
The first time we beat them, the second time was in the playoffs, and we missed a bunch of field goals. I know they beat us. That was a good game. And then the last time, we threw that game away. We lost that game. So, and also, all of those games were in Buffalo. All 3 of those games were in Buffalo.
Yeah, you're right about that.
So, I'm just saying.
And anyway, you know what? It doesn't even matter. This is a completely different Ravens team.
And that's a different scenario. We got to get past Houston first. So,
yes, that is true. We got to get past Houston, and hopefully sit back and just sip our cocktails on Sunday.
Right. Remember, to anyone going to that game, remember, it's going to take the city behind the Ravens. If we go down early, if things happen weird, if we have a weird injury or something like that, just stand behind them. It's okay. Believe in what we've proven to our fan base this year, that it really takes us beating ourselves to beat us. It really takes us beating ourselves. So as long as we don't beat ourselves, we've got a really good shot.
Yeah. And I think we've got the coaching staff, we've got the players, we've got the leadership, we've got just the total, everybody's all in, locked in. We've got it all. So we just got to keep that going and ride this thing out.
Yep. We do not obviously have a Mike's top 5 for this week because we didn't play last week.
Everybody's a top 5.
Yep.
Top 53. How about that?
Yeah.
I
was just gonna say except for Ben Cleveland, but he's been pretty good lately too. So
yeah. But I think that wraps up everything. Make sure you guys hit us up with that like and subscribe, share and subscribe. Make sure you do it. Yeah, like, share, and subscribe. Do it all. Hit that right now for us. That'll definitely help us out. Also, comment. Let us know what you guys got for this weekend.
So if we're both like crazy and we're going to get blown out, let us know. If you think that my mustache is too big and I need to stop picking the underdogs, let me know. So just enjoy the game this week. Let's get a Ravens win. Like, subscribe, share, and comment, and we'll see you guys next week, win or loss.
Let's go.